George Clooney and Grant Heslov.
Right.
Like, to me, it sounds vaguely The Men Who Stare at Goats-esque. So I'm looking forward to seeing Ben Affleck sort of stretch a little bit. I think he's a good director, and I think this will feel different enough.
Todd, your thoughts?
I actually have not seen Gone Baby Gone, so in terms of my comparison of that, I can't make one. But I like the town a lot, and I think that he is certainly like maturing, like in his career by moving into directing. I think this could be a great. I mean, like all the people who were involved, it sounds like it could be a really great project, and I look forward to seeing it. I agree that I think that his future career may be behind the camera instead of in front of it. Although I thought he was good in The Town. I think maybe take a smaller role in this one than.
I really liked him in Company Men too. By the way, just not to get onto that. But Dennis, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think he'll do a good job with it. With his first two movies, I think with a director, there's two things that you want to get going early on. Is you want to get your confidence up, and you want to get experience. And I think with his first two movies, that's what he did, and he has enough talent to move away from that, his familiar territory, right, and do something not entirely different, but at least different enough to say, okay, he has a wider range than what he was doing before.
Sol?
I would just say, Todd and Jen, try not to get your hopes up, because there's going to be a surprising amount of Massachusetts expats in Tehran for this movie. So you're thinking location, but then there's people in that location, and they're all going to talk with an accent.
What? Why does that guy in the Tron Marketplace sound like he's from East Boston?
You guys got a bubbler around here?
I think, Dennis, you raised a great point. I think, talking about being a new director, starting with what you're comfortable with and what you know, I mean, that really is what he's done so far. And really what he did with Good Will Hunting as well, with what the two of them did. So I personally, I've loved his two directorial films very, very much. And I can't make a prediction on how Argo will turn out. I am very curious to see how it'll come out. Let's move on to item number 4 here, and this is interesting. I haven't looked up the newest numbers on this, and I should have done that this morning, so maybe one of you two guys with laptops can look this up on Box Office Mojo or something. But Sanctum opened up this past weekend. And without going into the quality of the film, one of the things that I noticed and was interesting was on Friday or Saturday morning, I think I checked on the Friday night box office numbers. Not impressive. Certainly when compared to James Cameron's last film that he had his name attached to. Yeah. I think it made about $3 million on Friday night. Yeah. So I don't know what the weekend, if the full weekend numbers go, but it was well behind the first place film,
The Roommate,
which shocked the hell out of me. I
really attractive college-age lesbian horror film.
Movies like that.
You know what? It was rated PG-13, so any person who you can see plenty of college-age lesbian action, and you don't need to go see a crappy PG-13 movie.
Where would one go to find?
It's called the interweb.
Oh, let me type this in here. Oh my God!
I had a conversation with Roth about The Roommate in the sense of. It's interesting that the actual core audience for these kind of stalker type movies are females. Females are the ones who are very interested in these type of movies.
As my wife said,
and they're stalkers.
Crazy.
Yeah, there's something about them that appeals.
The female to female relationship is very complex.
Sure.
XOXO gossip.
Especially on this internet thing.
But I did find it interesting that when you looked at the marketing for Sanctum, James Cameron's name is everywhere. Mm-hmm. James Cameron, I remember the last trailer I watched, his name was literally said no less than 3 times. His name is executive producer James Cameron, big thing at the top, almost as big as the title itself. And the film has not performed well. Now, I'm not making any commentary about the quality of the film. I'm just saying the film did not perform well.
Well, I have a question here, and this could be a very ignorant statement, so I'll prepare yourselves. But when you market a movie as like the future of 3D, like you will not believe the crazy stuff we're about to do with 3D, and then the whole thing takes place in a very claustrophobic environment underground. What's so 3D about a 1-foot cave? You know what I mean? Like I understand, like yes, maybe his nose is coming out, but how do you market mind-blowing 3D in a claustrophobic environment. That's kind of strange.
Isn't that what he's hoping to do with Avatar 2?
I don't,
Yeah, where they're talking about
Underwater, but I don't think it's
underwater
going
or
to
something.
be claustrophobic.
No, I think Sanctum, which I can comment on the quality of it. I just don't think it utilized 3D well. It could have, but it didn't. The way that it was shot.
But being its opening weekend, does the quality of the film really have any reflection on its opening
It was
weekend
also only,
performance?
like, in LA, it seemed to only be an IMAX 3D theater. So it wasn't outside of that. You couldn't get it non-IMAX, you couldn't get it non-3D, at least in the theaters where I was looking at.
Well, speaking from a position of authority, I
Yes?
can tell you that AMC theaters did indeed show it on non-IMAX 3D screens.
Not at Century City.
Well, maybe not at Century City. But here's the question, and this is the topic that I want to bring up is, I mean, granted, it's if anybody's going to have drawing power, generally it's going to be the stars of the film as opposed to the filmmakers. But James Cameron's name is... Let's face it, it's pretty huge. It's a huge name, and obviously the marketing people behind Sanctum believe that it is as well. And, of course, the wild, stupid success of Avatar. But after looking at the results of Sanctum from this past weekend, I got to ask the question, is James Cameron's name a draw to the general average movie-going fan? Soul, what do you think?
Well,
would you go see a movie simply
clearly-
because James Cameron's name is on it?
Here's something you can say about James Cameron that you can't say about many people. The man knows how to make multiple billion-dollar movies.
Yes.
Okay, so he's got something clanking around in his head somewhere that's like, you know what? This will make $1 billion, and it happens time and again. So yeah, I think he's going to be a draw for me for the foreseeable future until he cranks out like a long string of crap fests. But he's got some form of it factor that has clearly proven itself.
One word answer. Did you go see Sanctum?
No.
Todd, is James Cameron's name a draw for you, or do you think it's a draw for the average film-going fan?
I think that his movies have been exceedingly well marketed. I think that, but I think that like there are very few examples of movies that no matter how you package them, they will look good. And I think that this was an example where when people saw the first trailer and the more marketing, it just didn't look like a great movie. And so people were like, why do I don't really have any interest in seeing this. And like, while I don't think that the movie-going public at large is necessarily like reliably savvy about determining the difference between a good movie and a bad movie, like if you watch trailers and it just doesn't look like a good movie, people are not going to go see it. And I think
especially opening weekend.
And I think that it could survive another week or two if it were like really well reviewed and people like were discovering that it was good. But I don't think that James Cameron's name or anybody else's name for that matter is going to bring people into the theater automatically if what they're looking at in that trailer or the advertising isn't good. And the first time I saw the trailer, I was like, what? And then
when you compare like the trailer for Avatar versus the trailer for Sanctum. And the trailer for Sanctum seemed like, a bunch of rich, privileged people go cave diving and then it floods. And you're like, oh, okay. And then maybe they get out of the cave. It's not like The Descent where maybe there's aliens involved or something like that. So it was strange for me that.
Jen, your thought on this?
I think that James Cameron his name being attached to Sanctum helped it much more than
as good or bad as it may have done, it would have done a lot worse had Cameron's name.
Oh
been
yeah, I mean it's an
8.9 of the 9
Australian
million.
movie. It's an Australian movie with no name actors really, unless you're a huge, fantastic.
I am broken. What are you talking about? Come on.
Well, his name legitimizes the use of 3D because there clearly
good
have
point.
been a varying degree of sort of 3D technologies used to shoot movies. I do think that was an advantage to the movie, that it was like, well, the guy who like pioneered this technology essentially now was the guy who did this. I'm sorry,
Yeah, but otherwise, without James Cameron's name, it would not have made $9 million. It would have made $1 million. Maybe. And I think a lot of it has to do with the trailers being really, really bad. Like the trailer made it look like
a lot of people
like
use
a B movie.
Dennis.
Yeah.
I think James Cameron, he's a draw for me, and I think he's a draw for the average movie-going fan. I mean, if you think about it, Avatar didn't really have name actors. Sure, they had Sam Worthington and Zoe Saldana, but it wasn't like huge names in that movie. It was mostly, the trailer marketing and James Cameron. And actually, I didn't even really like Titanic, but, because he made Titanic, people were waiting for Avatar. I think the problem with this movie is it's a very, in my mind, like a niche type of movie. Like,
if you like spelunking,
well, like,
you'll love Sanctum.
I'm claustrophobic, right? So why do I want to go see a movie that's going to make me feel claustrophobic for 2 hours?
No, but there's 3D.
Yeah.
So you're plenty of space down there.
Well, I would say, just in terms of your question about like why they would make a movie that was in an enclosed space in 3D, I was lucky enough to interview James Cameron at the junket for Sanctum, and one of the things he very specifically said is that it may seem counterintuitive, but 3D is even better used in a small, more intimate setting than it is in a large, epic one.
Yeah,
I mean, because he says that he points out that essentially after about 50 feet away from you, it all drops off and becomes 2D anyway. He goes, whereas if you were, say, to photograph our conversation now or a smaller, more recognizable location, then the 3D is going to be much more immersive and involving. And I think that was very specifically why he wanted to jump into something like this that was like a very enclosed space. And, I think that it was probably because of the directing that the 3D did not work that well in this movie, but it was not because of the technology.
Well, and maybe that's it too, is maybe there's just a disconnect in the general public not having seen, in a good example of that up close 3D, so that they still have the conception of 3D. You need a war sequence or a battle fight to really push 3D. Right. So that's that.
And I won't regurgitate my standard 3D is useless speech. So we'll just move on to the last topic here.
Let's do it, Campea.
We're gonna do a little segment here called For Your Consideration on a show called For Your Consideration. Where basically I'm gonna throw out a concept, an idea. We're gonna quickly go around the table, and then we'll move on to Dennis will give his concept, Jen will give hers. So I will lead things off here with this. For your consideration, Transformers 3 will end up being the #1 box office movie of the summer of 2011. Dennis?
Quite possibly. I don't remember exactly what else is coming out.
It?
Yeah, so it's got a good chance, probably 60-70% chance.
Jen?
Todd?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
All right, Dennis, your turn.
For your consideration, Duncan Jones's Source Code will probably be the best sci-fi movie no one's going to see this year.
I disagree based on the underwhelming buzz.
Oh, wait, you're agreeing, but you're giving a different reason why it won't succeed.
Yes.
Todd?
I want to see it. I guess I kind of agree. I mean, I hope that it does well, but it just depends.
When does it come out?
Not until after South by Southwest.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll wait till see what the marketing does, because I think it's a really cool concept. But again, I've only seen it because I've gone to like iTunes trailers and stuff. Like I've sought out that information. I haven't really been hit with it yet as a consumer.
I will agree. Actually, I will agree with that. Jen?
Okay, my for your consideration is Bieber related. Since you didn't say it. For your consideration, Justin Bieber is going to blow every other marquee name of this quarter away in terms of box office receipts.
Todd?
I agree. I think it's going to happen.
The Justin Bieber movie is going to make more money than I am comfortable admitting to myself. It is going to be successful. The guy was on. He did the Daily Show. Like he took over for Jon Stewart just out of nowhere for an entire segment. Then he was on Saturday Night Live doing a church lady skit yesterday. The guy is